Well, it is 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, excuse me. Don't want to scare anybody. It is 6 o'clock, so I know we don't have just a huge group here. Some of that we knew was happening. Is there somebody else? Did say you saw somebody else back, or is this it for now? All right. Well, you know what? You're going to get some individualized attention. This is kind of a strange thing we did this year. We were worried about social distancing, and so we broke up our night and put half and half roughly. Maybe we didn't need to do that after all. I don't know, but anyway, I'm glad you all are with us tonight. We're excited about the start of the school year coming up in just about a week. But I'd like to go ahead and just begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll go through a few things tonight. So let's pray. Our dear Lord, thank you so much for the privilege and the wonderful honor it is to be parents. Thank you for the children that you've entrusted to our care, and I pray, Lord, that we would be good servants with our children, raising them in a way pleasing to you. Thank you for the opportunity we have to have a Christian education, a Christian school here. And Lord, we pray that you would provide for every need. Give us a good school year with the challenges that are ahead this year. Lord, we know that through all of them, you will be glorified. And we look forward to seeing that. Please bless our evening. Bless the orientation to come as well. We pray it would all be for you now in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so we have with us a few people, and I think most of you have already met most of us. My name is Brian Fry. I'm the school administrator. I oversee the entire operation of the school here. And trust me, it's oversee, it's not do. These ladies over here do a ton of work, and I appreciate each of them. Mrs. Mean, who I think you've all met from your interview, but Mrs. Mean can stand, wave, whatever. She is the assistant administrator, and this year will be kind of a co-teacher in the K-3 as well. So working with Mrs. Haddon. If Mrs. Haddon, you want to, Mrs. Haddon has been here now for about 4 or 5 years? 7th, okay, I was off. That's why I should write it down. 7 years, 6 years experience. We appreciate Mrs. Haddon. She'll be working with Mrs. Mean in there. I have Mrs. Greaves, our K-4 teacher, who's here, and my wife, Mrs. Fry, who works with K-4, but also will be doing extended session, some other things like that. So you'll see her around as well. So let me go through a few things. It's nice since we're really a small group, you can stop and ask questions. I'm mainly back here because I am making a recording, and if I get down there, it won't work as well. So I don't want to be, don't feel like if I say something, wave. There's just a couple of us, so yeah, thank you. Hey, Mrs. Mead, you got a bright one over here. All right, thank you. I love it. The first day of school, I guess if you don't know this, is next Wednesday, September 9th. We start at 8:20. We always ask our parents to be sure to drop off your children, but say goodbye, and at some point, you need to leave them. If they cry, they're going to stop. They're crying because you left initially, but then they'll have a whole new world to explore and they'll stop. So I always remind people, don't worry. I know it's hard. I have 3 children of my own. I know it's hard as you walk down the hall and you hear crying. Trust us that if that continues for more than about 15 or 20 minutes, we're probably going to call you. So you don't have to worry about it. We'll let you know. Right, Mrs. Mean? They stop. They find new friends. They're talking to each other. They're having a good time. And so I always encourage people, don't feel like, oh, they'll be upset if I leave. This is what they do. This is what we do. It'll be good. Now, this is not even a COVID rule particularly, but we do ask that, at least starting on the second day of school, that if you do come in late, please be here by 8:20, because we need that. It'll be an interruption to the class if you come in later, but if you are late, we'll have somebody, probably either me or Mrs. Kettlewood, up front by the office, who will take your child down to the classroom starting at 8:20. We won't want any disruptions down in the hallway at that point as our classroom teachers are starting to work. And we also have the front door will be locked starting at 8:20. So there's a buzzer out there. You'll have to be buzzed in, and that's for security, obviously. But come on time. You don't have to worry about any of those things. So that's really our goal there, to have everybody by 8:20. Speaking of on time, I don't want to deal a lot with finances tonight, but just a reminder, the bills are due on the 10th day of every month. Please don't be late. There is a late charge. We don't do it in August, but starting as the year gets in, we have to do that. So please remember, the payment is due by the 10th of every month. If the 10th falls on a weekend, it's the next Monday. So it could be even as late as the 12th or the 13th on a holiday weekend or something. But it's the 10th unless that falls on a weekend. Mrs. Kettlewood will be in the office later on this evening, I guess we're into now. She'll be here, so if you want to make a payment or you have any questions about the office, she'll be here about 6:30, 6:40 or so. So she'll be here to answer those questions. Let me share a couple of things with you up on the screen. First of all, is this wonderful traffic pattern. Now, this is always a little hard because the screen is a different shape than our parking lot, so making an illustration on the screen is always a challenge. But what we want to tell you to do, this seems a little unnatural until you get used to it, but when you come in our access road, you'll make a hard left, and then come down. There is a little one is our dumpsters are over here, but there's a little shed over here. You're gonna come down this way, you can park. There's a lot more spots than it looks like on here, because the way I had to draw it. But you'll come down here, and you can park. There's spots there, spots here. Students this year, I don't know, what do we have, maybe 2 drivers in high school? There's not gonna be many high school kids driving this year. So most of this is parent parking. Find a spot to park there and bring your child in. What we don't want you to do is just come in straight. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, you'll meet people head on right here, and that could be difficult. The second problem with it is that's bus, and we have over 20 districts most school years represented here, and 10 to 15 of those bus. And you might get caught behind a bus, in front of a bus, around a bus. We want to keep cars and buses as separate as possible, so you don't have to worry about that. So it really works well. Come in, go this way, and then the center aisle is one way out. And this is if you come in the morning, when you come in the afternoon, even during the day. If you come in during the day, we ask you to follow this. I have somebody planned, a volunteer who's going to be out for the first couple days of school, kind of directing traffic to remind people. But the big thing, here's what often happens. A lot of spots are taken, and you see a spot like right about here. People want to come in and take a quick dash down the wrong way and dart into a spot. Then I get the angry phone call. Can you believe a parent cut me off coming the wrong way? Just help us out. Our enrollment is down a little this year, so we don't expect it's going to be quite as busy as it's been in other years. But if you help us out, it'll keep the parking lot. We do surveys at the end of the year, and how many comments I get? Improve the parking lot if there's a way, because it does get busy out there. So if you can come around, follow this kind of a loop, wherever you park, come all the way around to leave. Don't try to come back out this way either. That's narrow, especially during the winter when some snow piles come up there, it gets narrow. All right, enough on parking. Just do your best to follow this. If someone else is going to be picking up your children, share this with them, tell them how to come in. As well, it is a slow speed limit. You probably saw it when you came in, there's a speed limit 5 sign. It seems a little silly during the summer, but trust me, during the school year, you'll understand it. In fact, let me tell you one of the reasons behind that is right about over here is Shaker Junior High School, right? You see it out there? Over here is a neighborhood. Kids love to walk across and cut right across the end of this driveway. If you treat that like a speedway and come flying in that driveway, it may not even be one of our students, but children from the neighborhood that are going across to go to school at the junior or senior high school will often come across there. So I just ask, and there will be some spots that are marked off with cones. This area, the red X's, where the red X's are, we put some cones out. There are reasons for that. And let me share, some people try to park in this spot right here. You're probably going to lose part of your car to a bus. It's a tight turn for them. I'm a bus driver. I understand that. It is a tight turn. So we put some cones there, and every year I have people that try to pull under the cone, the rope on the cone. There's a reason there's a cone there. It's not to make your life miserable. It's to make your life better and to make sure your car stays in one piece while you're inside. Because as buses come around and make this hard turn, we block off 2 spots right there so that they can make that turn comfortably and not be right along the back bumper of your car. So just share those. There's reasons for all of this, and it all comes down to safety. We've done this, the school's been around since 1979. We've learned a few things that help keep everybody safe, and that's one of them. So 5 miles an hour, understand that. While I have the screen out, one other thing I want to put up here is a reminder, if your child is going to stay for extended session beyond 4 o'clock, our office closes around 4 o'clock. Mrs. Kettlewood leaves. If something comes up and you have to get a hold of the extended session workers, they carry a cell phone, and that number is on the screen there. I even put a QR code if you need it. This is only needed, in fact, we ask you don't use it unless you don't get an answer in the school office. Always try the school office first, but then late in the afternoon, if no one answers in the school office, this is a cell phone, so you can text it as well, and our extended session workers can be able, again, we don't want their attention distracted to a phone, but if you have an emergency, you need to let them know something has changed, somebody different is coming to pick up your child, something like that, that cell phone number is good. And a reminder, our extended session does end at 5:30. After 5:30, it's $1 a minute. So you really don't want to do that. We don't want you to do that. We don't want to bill that to you. But we do have to get our people home, and that's important. So we always recommend you have another person available if something comes up at work and you end up having to stay or you get caught in a traffic jam. We all know, I'm sure you guys have lived in big areas before. Albany is not a big city, but they think they are. They can't handle traffic, though. I've definitely learned that. I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, and that's real traffic. Around here, there's a fender bender, and it backs up for 5 miles. I've never understood why they can't clear fender benders. If they did that in D.C., nobody ever moves anyway in D.C., but that's other reasons. Anyway, but you want to be aware of that and have a plan for as far as the 5:30. Now, I want to talk just a few minutes, and I'll try to keep this brief, but I want to make sure we understand some of the COVID-related changes. We posted our reopening plan to our website, as every school in New York was required to do about a month ago. But I want to go through some highlights and how that's going to affect. Now, I have this same presentation I'm going to be using at some of them with older students. So I'll skip over some of the stuff that doesn't really relate to 3-year-olds. But I want to go through a few things. The first thing here is, this is really important to remember, that parents are primarily responsible for the initial health check. We're asking that at home, before you get in the car, you take your child's temperature. There's a couple of reasons for that, obviously. Number one, if you wait till they're in school, though, in worst case, if your child somehow is carrying that COVID virus, you could affect a lot of other people simply by bringing them in. So we ask that you do that initial health check at home. I should have brought one with me, but there is a form I emailed out last week. We'll have those in the office. You can get a pack. We put them in packs of 20 to start with. If you would like to use the form and fill it out, you can send that in with your child. Or, in fact, let me just jump ahead a second. There is you can submit it online as well. That's honestly what I'd recommend. It's just a Google form, nothing complicated, but the same exact question, certifying your child has none of those conditions, and and filling in the temperature that you took it, and just write your name and the date, and that's all you need to do on it then. And I think we'll get in the habit of this. I hope we don't have to do this all year. I hope we only have to do this a month or two. I mean, you're noticing how the cases are going down in New York already, dramatically. I mean, to lows that we didn't see since early March at this point. So we really praise the Lord for that. We believe the Lord's doing a real work in our state and is sparing us from some of what's going on in the South right now. But for now, it is still a requirement that you do this certification each day. And this is a state requirement. Every school that's doing in-person education has some form they have to do this. It's called a self-attestation form, and everybody's requiring it. So I just ask that either pick some up at the office, print your own, you got the PDF, or go online to this website, this screening website, and just complete it each day. Before your child comes in, take the temperature. Now let me go back again. The symptoms, of course, a fever, we're using 100.0 as the limit for that. That seems to be pretty common, or any kind of chills that would indicate a fever. Now, it's important to realize as well, you can't just say, oh, you have a fever, let me give you some aspirin or some Tylenol, and now you're fine. This has to be the temperature without medication. Has to be under 100. Of course, the new persistent cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, and really, as we're reading, it seems like in children, this last one is a really big deal as we're learning. If your child is telling you that he can't taste something or things don't smell right, I think as parents, and like I said, I have 3 kids of my own, that's something we ought to be on alert for as parents. And if that happens, let's not take the chance of something spreading. Keep them home, talk to your doctor, figure out what you need to do, and let's go from there. It really is important this year that consider others. I mean, that's why we wear these things, right? They don't help us any, but they help others. Let's try to do that as far as our children go. I know it's hard to have to take a day off work or something because your child, and understand it may be more than a day now. It may be up to 10 days that you have to keep them out if they reach 100, have other conditions like that. But please do that for all of our benefit. Consider, would you want another parent sending their child feeling the way your child does? And just consider that as we finish off, I hope, finish this COVID pandemic. Let's try to make sure it stays gone and doesn't come back, especially here at our school. So there's the daily report. Of course, we will conduct a basic health and temperature screening at school for the first 2 weeks or so, and we'll see how it goes from there. But we will have somebody that's going to be my wife to start with. Mrs. Fry will be in the hall, and she will be taking temperature right about here. We want to leave room for if there does end up being some kind of a line coming in, but she'll be taking the temperature of people entering the building, and this includes adults, not just children. We don't want you coming in if you're sick. Please stay at home if you're sick. We can all spread germs equally well, so let's be careful with that. But she's going to do that. We're also going to ask children if they feel okay, and again, we understand 3-year-olds don't always know how to communicate that, but especially with older children, we'll be asking them if they feel well. Students with relevant symptoms will be isolated, and of course, you'll be called to come and get them. Now, the rule about this is any of those COVID-19 symptoms, they have to stay home for 10 days. Now, there is a way around that, and there is a little bit of dispute exactly how this is going to work as schools all over the state are starting up the next couple of weeks. But this is a doctor's note. So if your child has a condition that might mimic COVID, like let's say allergies, and your pediatrician knows that, get a note from your pediatrician and say, this child is cleared for school, it's okay. You can get a COVID-19 test as well. We understand they're free all over the place, and pretty much any doctor's office can do them. The downside is not just they're not a comfortable test, but also there's a wait on getting the results. And we understand it can take up to a week right now to get the results. I don't know if any of you have had to take one. My father has had 6 now. Everyone negative, but he's helping the statistics in New York State, we're saying, because he comes back, he has 6 tests, all come back negative, and he has his 7th one next week. They just keep wanting to test him. But that's another way that if you know it's negative and then you're cleared that way, can come back. But other than that, it's got to be 10 days. Now that's 10 calendar days, not 10 school days, so it's about a week and a half when there's COVID symptoms, and that should make sure it's clear. And again, this is pretty standard across New York State. Now, let's just quickly, let's hope this doesn't happen. I don't think it will. But what happens if a student tests positive? So you go in, get the test, and find out either your child is positive or we have another child that tests positive. The rule there, that's where the 14 days come in. That child has to stay home 14 days. We'll work with the health department if there's some difference on that. We're dealing with cohorts, and I think that's a word that many of us are becoming familiar with now. A cohort is simply the group of students that surround your child. For you all, that's primarily going to be the K-3 classroom. So if any K-3 student were to test positive, the entire cohort, that classroom, would have to stay home for 2 weeks. Again, we don't expect this to happen, but I want you to understand the policy for this if it does, because that would be the direct contact, would be that. Now, one thing to realize, and this is important, in fact, I was on a conference call or a Zoom meeting actually with the commissioner of the health department about 2 weeks ago now, and she was talking about this, Dr. Whalen, I think is her name, that contacts of contacts do not need to isolate. So for example, if another child in the K-3 were to test positive, your child has to stay home, but it doesn't mean that any siblings of your child or that you have to stay home. Well, obviously somebody does with your child, but there's no quarantine on that kind of thing. It would, unless there's some symptoms or something to expect that, it would not be. Now, during that case would happen, we would work with you. It honestly is pretty hard to give a remote learning to K-3 students, to 3-year-olds, especially if something were to happen early in the year. But we will do what we can to get you maybe some papers, some worksheets you can do. Mrs. Mean and Mrs. Haddon, if this were to happen, we'll work with you on that. But here's the nice thing about the cohorts. If, let's say, we have an LCA student who's older, let's say a 3rd grader, test positive, more than likely, your child can keep coming to school just like normal. We're working very hard to keep our cohorts isolated this year from one another. So the worst case that they've told us from the health department is we may have to shut down for 1 day to do a thorough cleaning, depending on the contact that that positive student had. But she has said she has no intention of shutting schools down for 1 case. That's not directly related. So we're working very hard, and some of the things we're doing are going to seem a little awkward this year because of that, because we're really trying as hard as we can to keep students in their group, in their cohort, and not go outside of that, so that if there is a positive test, only a small number of students are affected, not the whole school. And again, this remote learning, I mentioned that's a little harder to do with 3-year-olds, but we will be providing it. And attendance policies don't apply to 3-year-olds, so I'll skip over that. We are going to ask students to wear some kind of a mask during the day. Again, we're not going to be mean about it. We know it's hard. We're going to give mask breaks. But we also know this seems to be a good way to prevent some forms of transmission, at least, of the disease. So our goal, and I know 3-year-olds, some of them probably wear it easily, not a problem in the world. Others may fight with it. But we're going to say that during the school day, as much as possible, the masks stay on, especially when they're playing closely together. Now, we're going to encourage hand washing, sanitizing, all of those things, which is really the better way, we know, to keep this from happening. But we're going to ask the masks to be on. Now, when they're sitting at their table working, we have some dividers set up. Now, our rooms aren't ready yet, but I'm sure if you want to see one, just ask Mrs. Mean. We have some dividers set up that as they're working, that if they need to take their mask off while they're at a table doing some seat work, coloring, or doing something, we want them to be able to. We know we need mask breaks. I can only imagine what a 3-year-old needs. So we will make sure that happens. But we are going to do that. And this is when they're playing together. I hope you want your kids playing together. I mean, that's one of the things they've missed the last 6 months, isn't it? Is any interaction with other children. And so we want them to be able to play together. What we're going to encourage after every playtime, there will immediately be either hand sanitizing or hand washing, depending on the schedule, what's happening in the routine at that point. The idea is that surface contamination is not we're not majorly afraid of that. If you kind of notice that out and about now, like it used to be, they were always sanitizing all the shopping carts and everything, and now that's not happening as much. We're not doing as many gloves out and about. And I think that because we're learning that that's very difficult to transmit COVID through surface contact. It's mainly an aerosol as we breathe out and pollute the air, I guess, that we're doing that. So we feel like the kids should play together and will play together. We're just going to say, hey, go wash your hands. Get some hand sanitizer. We're ready to do something different now. And we hope, along with all the cleaning and other things that we're going to do, that'll be a real help. Let's see. I talked about this, if physical distancing. I never liked the term social distancing. I don't think we ought to be socially distant from one another, but we can be physically distant at times. So I use that term probably for that reason. I said the students at tables have dividers. Again, your students won't be at desks. We are avoiding some of the long lines we've had in the hallway. We have some strategies to do that differently. And if your children are staying for nap time, we're going to have this maximum space between the cots. And also doing some things so that their heads are facing alternate ways, because that's, you're not going to get COVID by somebody breathing on your foot, especially when you have shoes on. I don't know. I just made that up. I have no basis for that. But we're going to do that with nap time to try to make sure that. If you have any questions, of course, see me or one of the teachers on that. And we are going to be doing the sanitizing equipment, play material. Even the playgrounds will be treated regularly. And the classrooms, one of the things we've learned is how important it is to keep airflow going. So we're going to have windows open as long as we possibly can in the year. Even if for a while we're running heat and have the windows open, we're going to have the windows open as much as we can during the school day and certainly at the end of every day to do that. All right, I mentioned this part already. Now, one thing to be aware of as far as the cohorts go is that if your child is staying beyond 11:45, they will be combined with other cohorts as the day moves on through extended session. So if they're here in the afternoon, for example, I think, what did we say? The K3 is combining with the K5 after 11:45 because of numbers. A lot of the half-day students leave, full-day students stay. But the numbers have gone down, so we have to do that for supervision. The same thing will happen again in the afternoon as the numbers go down, that we have to combine them. So if you're concerned about that, the best recommendation I can make is make sure you pick them up at 11:45, or between 11:45 and 12:10 or so during that gap in there. Pick them up then, and then they won't have to be combined with others. Let's see. Starting with this second day, it really is important to remember, we're going to ask you to drop your child off at the door of the classroom, but not to go into the classroom. We understand the first day we're all getting to know, and that we'll do the best we can to keep things clean and all that. Those of you, I don't know if you've either been here before in the past, but if you were here before 8 o'clock, you went to the gym. We're not going to do that. We're going directly to the classroom. 7:30 is the earliest a child can come in, and you'll be in the classroom starting right at 7:30. That last part is really not a change as much as anything, but if you do come in the morning and need to pick your child up, you'll go to the classroom and Mrs. Kettle will take care of it. In the afternoon, just knock on the door if the door is closed, and a teacher will come and then bring your child out from there. So it's not complicated. You'll see how that works. We're doing some other things, and again, we'll spend a lot of time on this, but we're not sharing art and PE supplies between classes. The playgrounds, actually, we've got some sanitizer we're going to be putting on that between groups that use it. Although I really believe that what God provides, the sun and the wind, are pretty good sanitizers themselves, but we'll be helping them out a little with some stuff we're putting on it. Common areas will be cleaned and sanitized frequently during the day. You'll see that. If you come in during the day, you'll probably smell some Lysol and see us going around wiping things down. So we're doing our best to keep things clean even during the day. Now, one change this year, and it might even be, depending on when you all met with Mrs. Mean, a change from what she had told you as far as snacks go. We're doing that a little differently this year, that we're asking every parent to send their own snack, where before parents took turns and sent for the whole class. We don't want to have things coming from other homes in this year. But with the kids, we'll have a snack time every morning, right, that they have. So send a healthy snack in. Send an apple, find your favorite little healthy snack the kids can have. Remember, if it takes a utensil, like if they need a spoon for it, don't forget to send a spoon in with it, or whatever they need to be able to enjoy it. But send a snack for your child. Even if they're leaving before lunch, they'll still want something to have during that snack time mid-morning to have. But we're not going to do, for now at least, birthday celebrations, anything like that. We're not going to share food around. If you have questions, the best thing, if there's something you want to do special for your child's birthday, talk to your child's teacher. That's the best thing to do, and we'll work on a way, if we can, to do that, but we're not going to have, parents bake a cake and bring it in. Not right now, at least. We're hoping we get back to that at some point, but for now, we're not going to do that. Of course, we're going to be teaching children about the hand washing and sanitizing. We're going to have a regular routine, but we're going to make sure that our students know about that. And I encourage you, I put on here, if you have any questions about our reopening policies, visit our website. It's about a 6-page document, I think, 6-7 pages that we had to submit to the state, and you can certainly read through all of that there. This doesn't affect you guys, so that's only high school. I don't think I have any 3-year-olds playing volleyball on a team, but we'll go from there. All right, a few quick things. One of the things you're going to be given tonight is a family verification form. Those of you who are watching on the recording, you'll get it the first day of school, but it looks kind of like this. This is mine for my kids here. It has all your information on it. We ask you verify this. There's a couple of things that are really important to verify on here. One is your email address. Please make sure it's correct. Mrs. Kettlewood works very hard to understand everybody's handwriting on the application, but it's easy to make a mistake sometimes. So look at that, look for that. That's really, really important. Of course, check the spelling of your children's names. If we made a mistake, we want to fix it. But we communicate heavily by email. It really is you understand it's a great way. It helps you, it helps us. We don't have to send out all the papers, and you get the information more quickly anyway. So check through that. The second thing are what's called family contacts. Mom and dad are probably listed there, but if there's anyone else, there's 2 things we're really interested in here. Anybody else who can pick up your child. We ask for ID until we get to know you. So if there's anybody else who might pick up your child, give us their name and just write it on. You don't have to put it in the little boxes. You can just write it on the bottom or the back or somewhere, but give us their names so that we can when we check ID, we'll know that person is allowed to pick up your child. The second thing is, it's good, especially if you or mom or dad is not always available by phone, like you have a job where you can't answer your phone at work or something, maybe to give us a third person we can call if your child is sick. Again, we'll always start with the parents, but if there's somebody else that, maybe there's a grandma in the area or someone that is okay for us to call, give us that number. So it helps us. There's times we call both mom and dad. We'll call cell phone, work number, home number. No answer. Nobody's available. It's good if your child's sick that we be able to reach you. So check that. Make sure we have those phone numbers, names of people picking up, and then, of course, there's a couple things you can ignore. There's a section for doctor. We don't need that. We're not going to call your child's doctor. But the system prints that on anyway. If anybody needs to call your child's doctor, you can do that. We're not calling the doctor. It even asks about dentist on here. I don't care. I don't care about your child's dentist. Don't worry about filling that in. The other thing, there's a thing at the top that says don't publish our address or phone number. We don't do that anyway. So don't worry, we don't share private information. That's our school policy. No matter what boxes is checked, so you can ignore that. in there. If you have any other questions, though, just see the teacher. Even if this is right, though, if you can just write like okay or all correct or something and give it back to your teacher so we know you saw it. But if you can check through that, that's very, very helpful for us. One other thing you got, I think in the July mailing, this looks like this is a statement of understanding on it. We do need this signed back. This is simply so we're all on the same page. Remember, your child has to be completely potty trained. That doesn't mean your child never ever has an accident, but it means that it's rare. And we understand nap time, new environment, things like that it's tough. They're little, but that they're completely potty trained. That they have to be able to use the bathroom unassisted. We are not a daycare, we're a school. We can't help your child use the restroom. There's a lot of liability issues there. There's other things. So that you've trained your child to be able to lower pants for a boy, to practice with using the jumper. And I would encourage with girls, Mrs. Mead, right, practice, have them in the jumper for a day to make sure they're comfortable. If you're gonna put them in tights, have them wear tights for a day to make sure they're comfortable using the restroom like that. They have to be able to eat lunch, basically unassisted. It's not like we're not gonna open a bottle for them, or what are the Go-Gurts? It's not like we're gonna open a Go-Gurt or something like that. That's not what we mean. What we mean is we can't take the fork and put it in their mouth. Our teachers will probably be watching 15 or so kids at that time. Okay, they'll and remember as well, we also put this in here, we're not gonna force them to finish their food. We're gonna give them lots of uninterrupted time, but we're not gonna say, you can't go and play until you finish. That's mom and dad's job. We can't do that as teachers. This just would never work. So we want you to say you understand that in there, and then also the timeliness that I already talked about, that school starts at 8:20. Coming in after that causes a disruption, not just to your child's education, but to every child in the classroom. When we bring a child in late, everybody wants to wave at them and everything. We got to start on time. So we just ask that you would initial this. If you need another copy, I've got some here and there's some in the office. Just let me know on that. A couple of quick general notes. If your child is on any kind of medication that has to be given at school, we do need you to send that in the original prescription bottle with the doctor's directions on it. So if it's one of those things where you're like, I can only get one a month, you keep the ones that are unlabeled. We need the one that is labeled, from the pharmacy on it. Send that in and give that to your child's teacher. It'll be kept in a locked container in our office. And we will do our best to administer any dose. We don't have a school nurse, understand we're too small to have that, but we can follow directions. And we'll do our best to administer according to the directions that are there. But again, the prescription must be in the child's name. Don't ask us to give, a sibling's medicine. That's not legal, and we can't do that, obviously. If your child has any diet restrictions, that reminded me, I was going to give you guys forms about that. I have them, and I forgot to. But if you have any diet restrictions for your child doesn't eat meat, doesn't eat pork, or prefers something like that, you have a preference for some reason, please let us know. You can simply write that on the back of this form or something, what diet you prefer. Again, it's not going to come up much, but we don't want anything to happen accidentally that either is against your wishes as a parent or against the medical needs of the child. So if you have any diet rules for your child, just indicate that on the form. Especially under COVID rules, it's unlikely anything's going to come up, but we want to do our best to support you. Allergies, if your child does have any, even like a bee, you've come up, your child's allergic to bee stings, please let us know. Again, the more information we have, the better, so just let us know about that. Mrs. Mean tells me I need to remember to mention this. The child's birthday is a special day. But around here, we still wear our uniforms even on children's birthday. So I know some schools do it differently. There's lots of other things we can do. We'll put a big sticker on them, all kinds of things, but they do have to wear their uniforms on their child's birthday. And as long as we're talking about uniform, let me just a couple of other quick notes. I always recommend labeling your child's uniform items. Remember, by definition, a uniform means everybody's wearing essentially the same thing. If your child gets separated from his clothing, we want to be able to get the clothing back to the right parent. I know, how could that happen? I wonder the same thing. How does a child lose this particular clothing item? But we want to make sure we get it back to you, so I'd recommend putting the name on it and permanent marker. We do recommend our boys not wear belts. Our older boys have to wear belts, but the little boys, they're still getting used to using the restroom. Elastic band is a whole lot better than a belt for little boys. Girls, tights, black, blue, and white. They can't just put jeans on under the jumper. Blue, black, or white tights are good though, or leggings in that case. But one thing to remember, during the winter, it'll get very cold. We know that. You know where we live. It's gonna get cold. But we keep our classrooms warm. So don't feel like, I've really gotta bundle my child up. Okay, when it's 10 below, we're not going outside for recess. Our teachers don't wanna go outside for recess at 10 below. So you can bundle them up with a jacket to come into school, but don't worry they're gonna be cold in their classrooms. We keep the classrooms nice and warm. So I don't want that to be a worry that you have coming in. Now, we do need spare clothes. This is very important. Even if your child hasn't had a potty accident in 6 months, even if your child hasn't had a potty accident in a year, being in a new environment it's tough. And nobody's in trouble for that. And I want you to understand, because a child has an accident one time does not mean he's not potty trained. It means he's a child, and that happens. So we understand that, but we do ask that you have a backup, full, complete backup set of clothes. Now, Mrs. Grieve is holding up, this is what we ask for, that you get a gallon Ziploc bag, fold everything in it, and put it in that bag. Because what we'll do, if their child has an accident, we're gonna take the clothes out, put the soiled clothes in that bag, zip it up, and send it back home so you can wash it, and then please remember to replace it. Now, let me say some things parents commonly forget. It's obviously, if they have an accident, they need new undergarments. So don't forget to include that in your bag. They obviously need that. And yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna say. The other thing is shoes. Now, this might seem counterintuitive, but you think about it, if a child has an accident, it's probably going to get in his shoes. Again, I'm not trying to be gross or disgusting or anything, but we're all parents here. We understand how that works. Many times parents forget. They can be an old pair of shoes, as long as the child can still fit in them, that's important, but it could be a little beat up or something that you maybe wouldn't wear normally, because we're just gonna keep it in the bag. We'll only give it to them if they soil their shoes they come into school in. Does that make sense to everybody? But it's really important, please, undergarments and shoes, very, very important to remember. By the way, that would include some kind of socks then as well, would have to be. So just think of everything they wear in a day. And it does have to be a school uniform, which brings me to, at the end of this, we're gonna be in the gym. There is a little room off of the gym, been our lunchroom in pre-COVID times, but we have uniforms set out. These are gently used uniforms. These are great to use for your spare clothes. They're in good condition, they've been washed, they're clean and all that, but they might be a little beat up in places. At the end of the year, families will often return uniforms to us so we can give to others. There's no charge for this. In fact, the more we use up, the better, because otherwise we have to pack them up and put them back in the attic again. And I'd rather not put them back in the attic. Again, so if you can use them, take them. At the end of our time, which we're getting close to, the teachers will go down and they'll meet you down there. Oh, and one reminder, of course, this year, make sure your child has at least one spare mask in her bag, book bag or something, backpack or whatever you send them in with, that clear backpack that we ask for, because things are gonna happen. Things happen to ours. Things happen to theirs. So send a spare mask in, that would be helpful. We also ask for a water bottle that is preferably non-spill. Mrs. Greaves has a demonstrator model there. We have to shut off the water fountains, obviously, but we have bottle fillers. We can fill water bottles here with clean, filtered, good, it's actually city water, then filtered, so it's probably double good, that we fill up here, or you could fill it at home if you have different water you want to put in at home. But we just ask you have something like that for your child. Hopefully before the year goes out, we'll be back to using water fountains again, but we know that's kind of a sensitive area, the water fountains are the common touch right now. So now, let's talk about if you're here for the full day program. First of all, if you can send a coloring book in that your child likes, it's amazing how often when they first wake up from a nap or when they're getting ready, this is good to have something to color on or something like that. We will be going outside as much as we possibly can. Obviously, we know that's good COVID related, but it's just good for children. We'll be out on the playgrounds as much as we possibly can. I already mentioned that you'll have to show ID to pick your child up. Now, let me say one thing that's important. You might find this, especially like the first couple weeks of school, if your child's out there, they might ask, Mommy, can I stay? I don't want to go. I want to play with my friends. I want to play on the playground. We can't check you out until you actually leave. We're responsible, and you're going to keep paying if you're under the hourly until you actually leave the playground or classroom area. We have to do that because we're supervising them at that point. So please remember that. We also ask that, let's say you pick up your child in the classroom, there's nobody on the playground, Oh, my child wants to play. We ask you don't do that because of our sanitizing rules this year. We've cleaned it and it's ready for the next group to come out, and there'll be another group coming out soon. So especially in our COVID times, we just ask that if you leave, it's probably not the time to play. We have two playgrounds, by the way. The one is more hidden back over to my left, but this one up here, oh, let me play, Daddy. If you would help us out and not do that, at least until we get through the COVID, would be a big help. Now, nap time. Roughly from 1:30 to 2:40 or so, our children take naps. Now, we have them on a cot. It'll be the same cot all year. We'll be sanitizing it throughout the year, of course. We do ask that you send in a blanket or some kind of a sheet for the nap to cover the cot with. Now, because of COVID-19, we'll be sending it home every day. Now, it's up to you if you choose to wash it every day or replace it. Maybe have 2 or 3 of them and replace it. But we are going to send them home every day because we really don't have a good spot to store it that we can guarantee it would be isolated from others. So we're going to be sending them home every day. So especially early in the year, it's still warm. September, October, you don't need a big, huge blanket. Plus, there's heat in the room, like I said earlier. So I'm going to give you a couple ideas. Mrs. Greaves and Mercedes here are holding up some blankets that work really well. Yeah, a crib or a toddler bed size. Yeah. And if you literally, this might seem like really weird to you. Kids are not us. They're fine on a sheet, on a cot. They will sleep, teachers, right, just fine. And especially early in the year when it's plenty warm in the rooms. They're not going to be cold because they're not under a blanket. So you want to put something like that is a great idea. And then that's easy for them to put back into a backpack and send home. So just understand that would be a big help to us. Do not send in pillows. I know you or I need a pillow to sleep on. They don't. I don't understand it, but we don't have a way to store the pillows. So, and if you have any concerns or questions, talk to the teachers individually about that. All right, so I'm about done, which I hear people coming in. I don't know if they're coming in for our next meeting later, but I'm about done here. Teachers, anything else that you want me to announce to everybody before we go? All right, so I'm going to send Mrs. Mean and Mrs. Haddon, I guess just the two of you probably need to go over to the gym, and we'll get you over there in just a minute. Now, there's some bins there. I don't know if you brought any stuff that you want to put in there. If you want, they'll be available, and they'll show you where the uniforms are, the used uniforms, if you want to pick some up. We just ask, keep your kids with you. It's not really a time to play. The classrooms aren't open yet. This was our first day back as a full staff, was today, so we're still getting back into that. We do ask you to do that. Mrs. Mean and Mrs. Haddon, they have a information packet for you, so pick that up. It'll have full information. And this is really, like I said, we have another meeting starting at 7, so this is not a time for a long meeting with your child's teacher. If you need to talk longer, we'll be happy to set up an appointment, a phone appointment, whatever. Just talk to them and they can do that. And of course, as always, masks, please, as we're close together. Won't it be good when these are a distant memory? I tell you what, I can't wait. So, and then in about, a little less than 20 minutes, we have another meeting starting, so I'll have to at least get Mrs. Mean in here at that point, so we'll shut that time down. Although, take your time down in the lunchroom looking at that. So, I feel like I've dumped kind of a lot on you in a short time, but we got through it all, and I appreciate your careful attention. If you would like to, if you have questions or need more information, the best one to see is Mrs. Mean or Mrs. Haddon down there, and certainly I can help you as well. So thank you all for your attention. Mrs. Fry, could you do me a favor and just show them if you guys haven't seen our gym, so if you just want to follow Mrs. Fry, she'll take you down there and show you where the teachers are. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Sarah? Whoops, did I just...